Here today with...
Joe Fowler.
Yeah, and if you want to let people know exactly who you are and what you do.
My name's Joe Fowler. I am the CEO and founder of Veterans in Crisis Sunderland.
Right, okay, so first of all then, for the people who haven't heard of that, what exactly is that?
So VIX is a community interest company that I set up in Sunderland because 5 years ago there wasn't anything really helping homeless veterans in Sunderland. Mm-hmm. I've worked for a homeless charity and I was finding quite a lot of veterans that were basically just put into private hostels and left with no help at all. So I decided to set something up. I just started with a £10 pay-as-you-go mobile phone and I used Greg's as my office. And from that, we've sort of grown.
Well, if we just touch on that a little bit then before we get into the story, is that obviously a massive widespread problem, and is it more so in the northeast, or is it?
It's a widespread problem. I wouldn't say it's more in the northeast. I would say it's more in the southeast, where there's lack of housing. We've been lucky enough now with the work we do at Veterans in Crisis to sort of, there isn't any homeless veterans now. You'll find now and again you get one or two maybe from a relationship breakdown or someone who's been evicted. But to be honest, the quickest we've found someone from street homeless to a flat fee was 15 minutes. Oh. So.
Well, I mean, it leads us on to one of the questions that we've got later on. Is the government doing enough? Is there a lot of support out there? Is there a lack of it?
There's more support there is now than there ever has been before with Johnny Mercer. He's quite setting a lot of things up, like Up Courage, Up Nova. There's Up Novas to help people in the criminal justice system. Up Courage is for mental health. What we're finding though, as smaller veterans sort of charities and community interest companies, is the money actually just goes to the big charities, the British Legion, the Walking with the Wounded, things like that. But you would find that they send them to us because we do things quicker. However, we don't get paid for it.
So in terms of the story then, so why exactly did you set it up? Was there like a moment that you had where you're like, I need to...
Yeah, when I worked for a homeless charity, we were sort of emptying a hostel, and I found this guy who was in his 60s, no drugs, alcohol problems, just some mental health problems. The place was horrible, and I asked him why he was there, and he said he tried to kill himself 3 years before, got put in there, and he just thought he had to stay there till he died. So that took us probably 2 weeks to get him his benefits sorted, to get him a new flat, to fill that flat with furniture. And I just thought, well, if I could do that, it wasn't even that hard. So I decided to set something up.
Yeah, and you've obviously been a support network for lots of people, and it's helped up a lot, yeah?
We've got over 650 clients now.
Wow. Well, we'll jump into that. I mean, one of the things that we are going to mention later on is the PTSD. Is that, obviously, you've been a soldier yourself, is that an actual thing? Is that widespread as well?
I was diagnosed with PTSD in 1994 from my time in Northern Ireland. So it is why it's more talked about now. When I was diagnosed, it wasn't really talked about. On the flip side of that is, though, if you mention a veteran, everyone assumes they've got PTSD, when that isn't the case. They could be depressed. There could be a million issues. It doesn't have to be PTSD every time it's a veteran.
Yeah. Well, we'll touch on your story. We'll obviously mention a lot about that, and we'll go into it a little bit deeper. So, if we start firstly, if we just get a kind of a rough chat about your childhood and stuff like that. So, it seems like a therapy session. This how was your kind of childhood?
My childhood was good. I was the youngest of 6 kids from a Catholic family. Quite strict. I had a church, which I really hated. But I had no problems in my childhood.
Big Sunderland fan.
Oh, massive Sunderland fan. And I always wanted to join the army from seeing the Iranian embassy. I don't know if you remember that, but the Iranian embassy, that was sort of like the first ever live news feed, because there wasn't Sky or anything then, of when the SAS stormed it, 1980. So that made us think, yeah, definitely. And then the Falklands War in 1982. So I didn't have I didn't have a plan B. I just wanted to join the army and stuck to that.
So it was kind of something that you'd seen on TV that kind of sparked everything then, yeah? Because obviously now, there's movies, there's video games, it's very much... you missed out on a bit of that then, and it was...
Yeah, it was all what I seen, basically. I always loved war things when I was a kid, but then once I'd seen the Iranian embassy thing, and I just thought, well, God, that's just got to be the best job in the world, and I'm jumping through windows.
Yeah, and is that the reality then? Do you find
it wasn't for me? It's something I always wanted to do. So I always wanted to join the SAS. To be honest, I probably wouldn't have been good enough, but also like my party lifestyle didn't come with that.
Yeah. Well, we see a lot nowadays with different types of war movies. You get your kind of patriotic, you get your kind of really gritty stuff, and you get everything. What do you kind of make of? Do you watch war movies now?
Yeah, I watch some war movies. I mean, some are absolutely rubbish. Like, it depends if the Americans are making them. It's just them winning everything in it all the time.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have won the war, apparently.
So what do you kind of, when you're watching them, how does it feel? Does it make you relive stuff? Does it?
No. I've been in sort of, I had therapy in the early 90s, and I've been through a hell of a lot since then, and nothing really phases us now, to be quite honest. I mean, just because you're diagnosed doesn't mean you've got to carry it around with you for the rest of your life, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to people's harrowing stories every day, you know. So if I want to listen to real life stuff, I just come to work.
So was it a case of you left school and then you wanted to list it as soon as possible? Then
I'd already joined before I left school.
Wow.
So I went to, when I was 15, I went to somewhere near Birmingham. I can't remember what it was called. And you do like 2 days training. And then I passed, and that meant I could sign up straight away. So I signed up when I was still at school, and I left school in May, got a job in a bakery, and I left for Winchester in September.
Wow. What was your parents' sort of response when you said that? Oh, I want to.
They were good. I mean, like I say, that'd been my dream all the time. I know I had some friends whose parents wouldn't sign, because you have to get your parents to sign if you're under 18, and they wouldn't sign, and they really regretted not doing that, you know. But no, they were happy with doing it.
So what is that process then? So you literally go away and it's a 2-week course?
No, it was a 2-day.
Course.
I don't know where they're going now, but at the time you went to somewhere near Birmingham. You do some runs, some sort of like training things, see if you fit in. Then they ask you what you actually want to join. I wanted to join the infantry because all I wanted to do was fight. And then they say, right, well, we've got this starting on a certain date, and mine was September. So I joined as a junior leader. So I must have got like a little bit higher in the IQ test. So I was picked to be a junior leader instead of a junior soldier. So that meant you went away to train for a year, and you learned a lot of leadership qualities through that.
So after that, then I take it you're there for a while before you get called up for.
Yeah, well, you do. Me personally, as a junior leader, I did 48 weeks training in Winchester.
Yeah. And then when was it? You obviously mentioned you got called up for action. So can you give us a little talk around that then? So was it a case of you were itching to get called up for it, and then, or was it a case of worry, anxiety, and stuff like that?
No. They wouldn't. I can't think of anybody who joins the army not wanting that, you know, especially the infantry. So I joined in September 86. I passed out at the end of August 87, and 2 weeks later I went to Northern Ireland. I was in Northern Ireland for about a month, and they realised I was too young, so that sent us back home. I went to a different battalion for a bit, went on exercise in Germany, did a course, and had a couple of weeks leave, and then by then I was 17 and a half, because you have to be 17 and a half to be in a war zone. You're not allowed to take part till you're 18, but you have to be 17 and a half to be there. So
did they realise that when you were already there?
Yeah.
Wow.
I knew.
Yeah.
But I just didn't say anything, you know. I wanted to go. So I scored for some leave, and then I got down to Germany for a bit. And then went back to Omagh in Northern Ireland, and I was in a thing called Under 18 Platoon. So you do training and stuff. And then I volunteered to go to the Falklands for a month. And when I got back, I think that was March, when I got back, I had a little bit leave, and then I was 18 in April.
Yeah. So if obviously a lot of people, maybe the younger audience, might not necessarily be familiar with that. So what was the situation in Ireland, and then what was the situation when you actually went as well?
So in Ireland, you were trying to stop violence between Protestants and Catholics. When Ireland first started in the 60s, the army were sent there to protect the Catholics, and then it did a whole kind of turnaround where it was the Catholics that hated the army. So there was a lot of terrorist atrocities, people getting shot up. It wasn't nice, but that's exactly why I joined. I wanted to go to Northern Ireland.
Yeah. So obviously loads of terrorist attacks and stuff like that going on. Still no fear, kind of very keen to get involved.
No, I was really keen. I was 18, wasn't I? So, I was happy. That's what you join for. You want to do it. And it's not bravado. It's, that's what that's why people join the army, and that's why young people join the army, because when you're older, you think, nah, I'm not doing that. Like,
Yeah. And did the perception that you had, obviously you said you had like big action sort of hero sort of thing, was that the reality when you got there, or did you find any differences when
well, so what happened when I was there? I was involved in a terrorist attack where 8 people got, and 8 of the me fellow soldiers, and that changed my whole perception in life. Not just to the army, but in life in general. I was 18, just they were dead. Nothing. There wasn't all that hero thing, which I thought there would be. So we were coming back from leave on a bus. At midnight, the bus got blew. 8 people died, 20 odd people like seriously injured. 6 o'clock the next morning, we went down to find out who was dead. 12 o'clock, I was packing the lad who slept next to his box with all his stuff because he was dead. Dinner time, we went to the hospital to see all the other people. 6 o'clock the next morning, we went to South Armagh to dig trenches, and then live in a trench for 3 weeks. So that kind of, blew my mind.
Does that kind of give you a reality of it could have been me if you literally see, and that is that the thing that really...
Yeah. Well, it was so close, because what happened was the bus was too full, and they needed to put some bags, so they put some bags in the transit van, and 6 of us went in the transit van and went ahead of the bus. So it could have been me. And it's a sad situation. I was 18. Everyone who died was under 21. So it was horrible. Like, but I think what I've learned in sort of my training and the stuff I do now is like, it never ever got spoke about. I've never really spoke about it to anyone who was on the bus. So I think talking about it would have helped, but we didn't speak about it. So I didn't speak about it from being 18, which was 1988, till 1994, till I spoke to a counsellor.
Wow. They're all kind of in the same boat. None of your colleagues or whatever spoke?
So I've got a best friend who was in the van with us. I was out with him on Sunday, and we still haven't spoken now. So we've been best friends for 32 years, and we've never once spoken about it. Wow. And I made a documentary about it, and he watched the documentary, and I said on the documentary, we've never spoken about it, and we still haven't spoken about it. It's just crazy. I think it's because when I see him, I want things to be happy. I don't want to, dwell on stuff. So if I see him in a social situation, we go on holiday and all that sort of stuff, it's not what you want to bring up, is it? So I've never really spoken about it.
I mean, there's a phrase now, obviously we're in a different age now to how many years ago, toxic masculinity, where it's a case if you don't want to open up, men find it extremely tough to open up to other men. Is that maybe
I think that's changed now. I think from my point of view, from me doing this, it's changed a hell of a lot, the people I knock around with and the stuff, that will open up more about the feelings. Once I'd said it once, I'm quite happy to speak to anybody about anything in my life now. I think the first time you say stuff out loud, I think it's not too bad after that. And it gets easier and easier,
So was that a weight then sort of thing, the first time that you said it?
It is, because when I first went to a counsellor, I actually thought I was mad. I thought I was the only person in the world who felt like that. And obviously I'm not. Anxiety attacks and stuff, and the fact that these things had happened to us, no one ever spoke about it. I always thought it was just me, but it's thousands of people. I listen to people who feel exactly the same. So the whole idea of Vix is, other than me, everyone else who works here has been a client. So if any people come in, we'll say, well, this all happened to us as well. Yeah.
I suppose if everyone keeps it to themselves, everyone will feel like it's only myself. But if people see other people
once you start talking about it, it's all right. It is all right. The first time you ask for help, things get better from then on.
So when you went to therapy then, was that a kind of, I don't want to do this sort of thing? It took you a while, or was it, no I need to do this? Or
meant to be quite honest, really bloke. He was about 20, 21, something like that. Just lost for university. First thing he said was, when I was telling him about it, he was saying, I know how you feel. And I was thinking, well, you haven't been shot, you haven't been up, so I don't think you know how I feel. No. So no, I didn't find it helpful at all. I think I did more stuff. I actually did counselling courses myself, just to level 3, so nothing like major. And I picked things up myself. But what I learnt is that I would be shit as a counsellor, because if the patient didn't speak, you didn't speak. That to me, when that was happening to me, just made us paranoid. Yeah. So I like to just chat away, and I put humour in everything we do. We just have a laugh about stuff. Yeah. Because it's already happened now, so you might as well have a laugh about it.
So would you find it a lot easier if instead of it being a professional therapist or whatever, was someone who maybe had a sort of similar shared experience?
Yeah, well, this is exactly the way I've made Vicks. So it's peer support. So if somebody can tell you, and we can laugh about it. You know, we say stuff. You know, it doesn't matter if you've been attempting to, because I've tried that. You know, you just make a joke about it, because in the forces, everyone has a dark sense of humour. Everyone will tell you that. Everyone will say they laugh about anything. You know, you know for a fact you shouldn't, but you do. You know, and that's what gets that's sort of a common bond. Everyone will laugh about stuff. So you know, if you're feeling really down and depressed, and like everyone else is mollycoddling you and stuff like that, and you come here and everyone just laughs, and you know, it brings you back to normal.
Yeah. Well, in terms of Ireland, then, if we can touch a little bit more on that. So you said after the incident, you spent 3 weeks in trenches.
Yeah.
What was that in terms of in your own head after that? Was it a case of...
No, it was horrible. It was really horrible, because, like I said, nobody was speaking. It was raining. It was all muddy. It was horrible, like, to be honest, you know. But like, I would never, you know, I signed up to do stuff because I wanted to do. Like, I wasn't forced to do it. It's nobody's fault. You know what I mean? It was kind of war, so it happened. And you know, I would never blame the army for me suffering like later on. It's just happened, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely no blame attached, but it's a case of you can't necessarily help the thoughts in your head or thing like that. So it was. Would you say that changed a lot for you then once that incident happened?
It changed my life completely. Yeah. It changed my life completely. I didn't want to be in the army anymore. I started taking drugs, but I wouldn't say that was the reason. It was just 1988. Everyone was taking next, so I got into that scene. Before that, I was drinking a lot, like a hell of a lot. So they would make you drink a pint of spirits, for instance. And at my size, you know, that could have killed us. I found like taking extra, enjoying myself. I never had a hangover. But the downside of that is if you're in the infantry, you kind of get around hugging everybody all the time. You know what I mean? So I had to make a decision. So I left the army in 91.
Yeah. And is that something that it took a while to kind of reach that decision, or was it? No.
God, no. No. Probably it's the first rave. I thought, no, that's me. I'm out.
Party scene from
It's for me. This, like, definitely.
So the party scene, I mean, people will say with drugs and alcohol and stuff like that, it has the fun side of it, but then it also has the negative side afterwards. If you're carrying a lot of emotional baggage, did you find afterwards that helped, or was that is it a coping method?
Yes. So what happened was, so me and my friend, we were doing that in the army. Then we both left. He lived just around the corner of us. We were doing it back at home, going to raves and stuff, and then he killed himself in 1994. And I don't know why, but I'm assuming that's what it was, because of the drugs. And that's why I went to the doctor. That's why I went to the doctor in the first place, you know. And then they sort of put it back to what happened in Ireland. But you know, it's an old saying, like if you're gonna get high, at some point you're gonna be low, aren't you? So you just need to balance it out, really. You just realise, you know, if you're gonna be taking drugs, you're going to be high. Then when you're not taking them, you're going to be low. So it didn't have a massive effect. I would say the sort of thing that had the most effect is I smoked weed for 20 years every day, pure weed. And I would think that took away all my drive. You know, I would think I've had a busy day and I'd only went to the shops. You know what I mean? I used to spend all day watching cookery programmes and making something nice for tea. Yeah. So,
and in terms of when you got back then, because they're having a lot of movies, it's difficult to move back into civilian life. Was that a big adjustment, or...?
No, it was great for me, because obviously I was taking loads of extra, so I had loads of mates.
Did you find any difficulties? I mean, how long were you in action? You were in Ireland for...
5 years I was in the army.
5
just
years.
Under 5 years. I spent a year at Winchester, 2 years just under 2 years in Ireland, and just over 2 years in Berlin. So obviously Berlin was a massive rave scene.
Party scene, yeah.
89, I was there when the wall came down. So we used to be taking together every weekend.
Were you doing stuff with that then, with the wall, or was that...
Yeah, we were handed tail when I come down. We were on the other side.
Wow.
So the first people that come through.
I mean, that must have been a big thing, because obviously at the time that was huge.
Mental, it was absolutely mental. And like, it was going all really well until David Hasselhoff got involved. Totally spoiled it for everyone.
So what was the thinking of the time around that as well? If you could just kind of paint.
Well, it was great for us, because we were like kind of enjoying ourselves, taking and stuff, and so then it felt like everyone's free and stuff like that. Was really good. The downside of that is before, when the wall was up, if you went to the other side of the wall, you got everything you wanted for next to out. So you would go for the best meal you could ever imagine, champagne and everything, and then you would tip them like a month's wages, and it cost you absolutely nothing. But once the wall come down, that stopped. So
Yeah.
see, their freedom ruined my meals.
So what was that like before the wall came down? Because obviously that's one of the biggest wars of our generation, sort of thing. What was that like?
It was completely different Ireland. So you're in Berlin, so I don't know if you know what happened, but they split Berlin up. Half went to the Russians, a third went to America, a third went to the UK, and a third went to France. So that you basically, the eyes of the world is on you all the time. So you've always got to be polished and cleaned and pressed, and you'd have call-outs where you had 2 hours to get on the square, which is mental because they would have just blew the square up and everyone was on it. Nobody thought about that. So it was all about that. It was interesting, the fact that you could go and do stuff like what you would see in spy films and things like that. You go to them places, and obviously I was there when the wall come down, and that's a piece of history. And there was some good bits, but it wasn't for me. Polishing your kit and marching around and stuff like that, it's not for me. Like.
Yeah, more action rather than the rest of it.
That's
So
what I joined for.
did you see any action in Germany then, or was it a case of that was the
Only in
peace
the
sort
pubs.
of time? Yeah. So what was that like then? Because I'd imagine that was just after the war then, so very sort of peaceful, everything nice, or was it a very fractious sort of?
No, it's for the 2 and a bit years I was there, it was exactly the same from getting there to leaving. You just did your kit all the time, marched around, doing parades and guards and things like that. Nah, it wasn't for me.
So that was after Ireland. So after you'd have
that-
had the traumatic experience in Ireland,
yeah.
most people would have thought that was nice, quite a chilled, would have been nice and stuff. But
Yeah.
you were anxious at that time to still.
People, there's a documentary, it was on BBC One called Ticking with the Crow. They made a documentary about it because people were left Ireland after everything had happened to us. Then went there, and it was a completely different pressure, but it was worse. And you should watch it. It's good. It's on YouTube.
So what was the feeling then when you were speaking to the population? Because obviously they'd just been through everything.
They were happy.
Yeah.
The West Germans weren't that happy, like, because they were just sleeping all over the street, and they just didn't. There was no thought in what happened. They just come across, so they didn't have anywhere to live, and then it got a lot dirtier, and it was always really tidy before. Then you had a lot of refugees, and so the West Germans weren't that happy. I don't know what it's like now.
Yeah, and because that was that around the time when there was hyperinflation and there was all sorts of problems and. No.
I think the hyperinflation thing was in the 30s, wasn't it? When you could carry a wheelbarrow full of money. Right?
Yeah.
That was the 30s. That's how Hitler come to power, innit? Because then he blamed it all on the Jews.
Yeah. So once it had been liberated, then you obviously had a lot of emotions sort of going around from the country and stuff. So what was that like? Did you manage to speak to Germans and stuff like that?
Yeah,
or?
I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I was like multilingual and hung around with other nationalities, like, because now I'm older, that's what I like, but at the time it didn't, you know what I mean? But it was all right. It was nice to help people, wasn't it?
Yeah. Right. So then going back to Ireland, because obviously that's the main thing that you've experienced. So after going into the incident, then, so how was that? Just a regular sort of day, no concerns that anything was going to happen?
What about the bus?
Yeah,
we'd been on leave, so we were going to go and dig these trenches down South Armagh. So they give us a weekend's leave, or a few days leave, sorry, and then we came back, flew back. There's 2 airports in Belfast. We flew back to one, the others flew back to another one, and then there wasn't enough room on the bus, so we drove back to camp, and then the bus obviously got pulled up.
So it's literally a case of it could have been.
They'd put a bomb at the side of the road, like on a trailer, area, and bus up.
Wow.
It's called the Ballygawley bus bombing.
So that's a very final destination-y kind of moment where one split decision sort of thing.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I don't even, to be honest, we just wanted to get back so we could get on the drink. That's why we would go in the van.
Yeah. So when you found out the news then, realising how close that could have been, what was that then?
It's a shock, isn't it? I mean, I'm only 18, and but then you find out people's dead, people's lost their legs, and it's just horrible, like, to be honest. One of them.
So what does that do to the camp then with everyone?
Well,
Obviously silence, like you said,
yeah, but the morale was really bad. Morale was really bad. But if you watch that documentary, it shows you that the way people felt they were treated and thing. It wasn't what I thought it would be like. I thought everyone would be like heroes and stuff like that. No, it just wasn't.
So is that very different to the perception then? So after that happened, did that change the perception? Did
Yeah.
you think, right, I want to get out, or was it a case?
I don't know. I couldn't get out. I had to wait till I'd done me. Well, I joined as a junior, so I had to wait till I was 21. So then I was only 18, so I still had like till being 21.
So does that put you more on edge then in terms
No,
of...
no, I wasn't scared of the thing. I just didn't like the way things were treated, people were treated, or the way things were dealt with. I wasn't like that keen. But then you got to think, like, the people that were doing that, they'd been in the forces for years, so they know more than me. You know, the way to treat, when this sort of stuff happens, they've probably seen through a lot more than me, so this is just my perception as an 18-year-old.
Yeah. Do you think that would have been different if you'd had that experience further on in terms of the career? You know, facing that as a younger male.
I don't know. I'd only gone from like the feelings I had at the time, and you know, I think the more it not getting spoke about as the years passed, I think that's what made it worse. I think if it had get spoke about at the beginning, I think it would have been all right.